Hello, this is Mr. Lowry, and today I'm going to go over the objective of teaching the kids what theme means, or what is the theme of a story. So the objective coming from our TEKS is 3.8a. We will analyze popular folk tales by inferring the theme of the story. Here's some popular folk tales in our culture that have themes to them. Little Red Riding Hood, Jack and the Beanstalk, or the Pied Piper of Hamelin. A folk tale is a type of traditional tale that comes from a particular country or culture. Folk tales were told long ago and passed down from generation to generation. Folk tales include characters, usually people, animals, or non-living things that act like humans, so we know that they're not necessarily true. These are make-believe or made-up stories. Problems or conflict is often between people or people and animals. The plots that involve a problem and solution. Remember, when we're talking about plot, we're talking about the main events of a story, which includes the problem and solution. And a theme or central message or lesson that could be learned at the end. So again, the reason why we don't know who the author is in a lot of these folk tales is because the stories are old and have been passed down through the years by word of mouth. So that's why it says here, what is a folktale? A folktale is a story with no known author. Folktales are passed down from one generation to another by word of mouth. Long ago, people did not have radios, television, computers, or even books or written language. Therefore, people entertained themselves and their children with stories that taught them life lessons. Here I included some of these pictures just to show people passing on stories by word of mouth. Kids didn't have school back then, so they would learn these stories from their elders or their grandparents. These stories were important again because the kids didn't have books to read, they didn't have school to go to, but these lessons taught a very important life lesson or moral. So the theme again is the moral of a story or the lesson that can be learned. Here's a popular one, the Little Red Riding Hood story. In Little Red Riding Hood, her mother tells her to take this basket of goodies to her grandmother. In order to do so, she has to walk through the woods, and her mom is seen in this slide telling her, "Do not talk to strangers." But little after leaving the house in the woods, she encounters a wolf. And the wolf asks her lots of questions. What is your name, little girl? Where are you going? And of course, she tells the wolf all the details. And the wolf takes off, runs to Grandma's house, and there are always different versions of these stories. Some versions are horrific or scarier than others. So it could be that the wolf tied the grandma up and hid her in the closet, or ate her, and then took her clothes so he could disguise himself as the grandmother. Again, what mistake did Little Red Riding Hood make? What lesson does she learn from this mistake? The theme, that should say theme and not the them. The theme in Little Red Riding Hood is don't talk to strangers. She should have listened to her mother. She should not have talked to the wolf. Her mistake was telling the wolf where she was going and what she was doing. And that's a good lesson for all little kids to learn even today. When you go out in public, don't talk to strangers. You can't trust everybody. Another popular folk tale is The Three Little Pigs. In The Three Little Pigs, the little pigs need to make a house. This one makes his house very quickly out of straw. And this pig makes his house pretty quickly too out of sticks. They're both done with their houses, and they end up making fun of this pig who's taken his time making his house nice and strong out of bricks. But soon the little pig who made his house so quickly out of straw learns that he made a mistake. His house is too weak, and a big bad wolf comes and just blows it down, and then chases that little pig, who runs to the house of the pig that made it out of sticks. And then soon those two pigs find out that that house is not built strong enough, and the big bad wolf blows it down. And then they end up running for their lives, going to the house that is made out of bricks. Then they find that the wolf is not strong enough to blow that house down, which is stronger because it's made out of bricks, and it was made with time and carefully. So they live happily ever after in that house. What is the theme or moral of the story? What lesson did the pigs learn in the end? The theme is hard work pays off in the end. Those pigs who were lazy, who made their houses very quickly and didn't put much effort into their houses, learned their mistake. Their houses were too weak. They were making fun of this pig for taking so long to build his house, but his house was stronger than theirs. So again, taking your time in order to do things right the first time. It's a good lesson for kids to learn that I use this theme in my class when they're taking a test. Remember, don't do your test really quickly and just turn it in, because usually kids who do that make a bad grade. Take your time, check your work, make sure it's done good, and you'll get a better grade in the end. The tortoise and the hare, or the hare and the tortoise, there are many different versions of this story too. But the rabbit in this story is a braggart. He brags to everybody all the time about how fast he is, and he will challenge anybody in a race. Nobody wants to challenge him except for the tortoise or turtle. And so they have a race, and of course, as expected, the rabbit takes off and he's running really fast. Eventually, he's way ahead of the turtle, as he can see him way back there here in this slide. And so he decides, since he's got so much time and the turtle's never going to catch up, he can take a nap. But in doing so, he sleeps too long, and then the turtle, who was taking his time and going as fast as he could the whole time, even though it was really slow, he ends up crossing the finish line first because the rabbit had fallen asleep and slept too long. And then here he's sad because he's lost. Who learns the lesson here? What does he learn? What is the theme or moral of this story? The theme or moral is slow and steady wins the race. It also could be don't be a braggart. No one likes someone who's bragging all the time. And don't be overconfident. I like to use this one too when my kids are taking a test, because usually the kids who finish their test really quickly and don't check their work and turn it in, they always make bad grades. So turning your tests in first isn't the way you make a good grade. You need to check your work. Those who check their work, take their time, those are the ones who make the really good grades on their tests. Which leads us to the boy who cried wolf. In order to understand this story, you might need to understand the term shepherd, which is a person who herds or takes care of sheep, because in the story this boy is a shepherd. He works out in the fields with the sheep, protecting them and herding them from different pastures. You might have heard German shepherds. German shepherds are dogs that were bred and trained to herd sheep and protect those sheep from wolves. So they were bred to be very large dogs. The boy who cried wolf. Once upon a time, a shepherd boy tended his master's sheep near a dark forest not far from the village. Soon he found his days in the pasture very dull. "There is no one to talk with, and there's nothing to do," he would moan. All he could do was talk with his dog or play on his shepherd's pipe. Who is the main character? What is the setting? Remember, the setting is usually given to you here in the first part, or first paragraph. What is the main character's problem? And he says that here too at the beginning of the second paragraph. One day, as he sat watching the sheep in the quiet forest, I should say, he thought of a plan to amuse or entertain himself. His master had told him to call for help if a wolf should attack the flock, and the villagers would come running to drive it away. "If I alert the village that a wolf is here, people will come. Then I'll have lots of people to talk to, and what fun it'll be," the shepherd boy thought. Explain the plan that the boy comes up with. What does he want to happen, and why? So though he had not seen anything that even looked like a wolf, he ran toward the village shouting at the top of his voice, "Wolf! Wolf! As expected, the villagers who heard the shepherd boy's cry dropped their work and made for the pasture with great haste. That means fast. But when they got there, they found the boy doubled up with laughter at the trick he had played on them. A few days later, the shepherd boy again shouted, "Wolf! Wolf!" Once more the villagers ran to help him, only to find that they had again been tricked. Why does the boy trick the villagers? How do the villagers feel after being tricked by the boy? Then one evening, as the sun was setting behind the forest and the shadows were creeping out over the pasture, a wolf really did jump out from under the underbrush and started chasing the sheep. The boy ran toward the village shouting, "Wolf! Wolf!" But though the villagers heard the cry, they did not run to help him as they had before. "He cannot fool us again," they said. The wolf carried away a sheep into the forest. So here, explain why the villagers did not come when the boy cried wolf. That day the shepherd boy learned an important lesson. If you desire people to believe and trust what you say, you must always be truthful. The end. So there it tells us the lesson. What is the theme or moral of this story? It was the lesson that we just got done reading at the end. Or what is the lesson that the shepherd boy learns? Those are two different types of questions that you'll see that are both asking for the same thing. They're asking for the theme of the story. What is the lesson that is being learned? Now, if you go to my Google Classroom, remember, go under classwork and you will find The Boy Who Cried Wolf. There in Google Forms, I have a test that I prepared, and you will also find this video right here beside it. Thank you for listening. See y'all next time. Goodbye.